Now let's transition. We talked about letting go, right? And we're going to talk next week more specifically in some actual things you do in your parenting that will help start that process. But I want to get some conceptual things so you understand why and what that's about. Now let's talk about what you hold on to for dear life. This is important. And I call them 3 kidnappers of our teens. Some thoughts about holding on. Great parenting efforts can be undermined in less than 3 months because of 3 of these. I've had people come in my office and they tell me about their parenting and their situation. I mean, at first they're there because of a crisis, but as I take a little history and figure out what's been happening, I'm thinking, I can't really find a lot of fault here. And you guys did a good job. So what happened in such a quick, short period of time? What in the world happened? Good Christian parents can be shell-shocked because of these devastating kidnappers. I mean, you're doing it all right, and then the whole thing just goes south in a heartbeat. Now, I'm a yes kind of a dad, and I encourage folks to be yes parents. I say yes a lot. Okay, and here's a little principle that you'll use. When I say no, I get resistance, rebellion, and a lot of arguing, right? How come? I say yes with conditions, and I'll probably hit this later on again. But I say, hey, Dad, can I go to Disneyland? Sure. As soon as your room's clean, go for it. Can I do this? Sure. As soon as you just have this little condition, so you get what you want, and they're mostly motivated because they got something they want, and suddenly they're doing something, and I'm saying yes with conditions, as opposed to no. Clean your room up. I mean, I'm saying the same thing, but it's a whole different way of delivery that makes a lot more impact, a better impact on your kid, and makes them much more cooperative. So I'm saying yes to a lot of things. The reason I say yes to a lot of things is because I want buy-in to the few things I'm going to say no to, where I'm going to plant my flag and die on that hill. Okay? But if I'm saying no to everything, well, then I'm not going to cooperate with anything. I mean, you're just saying no to everything. So I don't know what's important, so I guess everything's not important. Everything's important to you, so therefore it's not important to me. But what I do is I say yes, 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 not here. And they are much more cooperative because they get me, and they understand that I care about them. I'm working with them. I want to be flexible, all that good stuff. And if you would have talked to them when they were younger, they'd say, yeah, he's pretty easy, but man, he gets a little nuts about these 3 things. But they're cooperative because they understand that I'm pretty flexible with a lot of other stuff. Okay, so here's one more. When you're loose with the many, they'll usually go with you on the few. Okay, when you're loose on the many, they'll go with you on those few things that really matter to you. And there's a lot of things out there that they say, can I do this, can I have that? And you're saying, no, 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 no. And then they're not going to go with you on anything. So you want to pick your battles, and I'm going to show you the battles of the day. Okay, so we're going to talk about kidnapper number 1. What do you think it is?
Friends.
Who their friends are. Absolutely number 1. Actually, there are 3 kidnappers. I'd make this number 1. The other 2 are kind of like tied for second place. But this baby is all by itself. Who their friends are. Who their friends are will, let's look at some scripture. Don't do as the wicked do. Avoid their haunts. Turn away. Go somewhere else. Another scripture. Be with wise men and become wise. Be with evil men and become evil. In Proverbs. Basically, you become like the people you hang around with. And I'm meaning you, the youngins. I mean your teenagers. I mean your 2-year-old. I mean me. I mean my mother. Whoever we hang out with, we're going to become like. We don't have a choice about that. You don't have a choice that you will be influenced. You will be influenced. Your kids will be influenced. The only choice that you have is who those people will be. That's the choice you get. And so you, as their teenagers, that's the area I want to make sure that, that they're going to make good choices in that area. And I get a little crazy about this because I know how quick of an impact the wrong kind of friends can have. It's amazing. Let me tell you a story. Jordan, when he was like 10 years old, and we lived in Chino Hills, and in the neighborhood, all his friends were 2 years older, or 3. So he was the youngest in the group. And for many years, that was not a problem. And they were good kids, great kids, to our house, all this kind of stuff. But then my wife and I noticed that he was acting a little bit different. And it's like, hey, he's sure acting older than he is. He's not acting like a 10-year-old, he's acting like a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, and talking like 12 and 13-year-olds, and being interested in girls like 12 and 13-year-olds. And he's just 10. And we're going like, I don't know, this is starting to not be a good thing. And so what do you do about that? You understand, I mean, you have at grammar school, right? And then there's something crazy happens to kids where they have to take them away and put them in a special place and put a big fence around it. We call it junior high school, right? Because weird stuff goes on there. And then when they get through that, then you send them to high school. So our son was hanging out with these junior hires now. These kids were good kids. They weren't bad kids, but they were just in a different place. And so we wanted to stop or intercede in that area. So what do you do with that? I mean, how do you engage that? So here's what we did. We had a little meeting and said, Jordan, we want to talk to you about something. And we said, listen. And we started naming off his friends. These guys? Yeah. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but they don't go to your school anymore. They go to a different school. And they're really great kids. We really like them, and they're cool. But they're in a different place. They're at a different school. They're thinking different. They're learning different things. And so we're going to ask you not to hang around with them anymore. And he looked at me like, whoa, what are you talking about? And again, there wasn't anything wrong other than the fact that they were just not equally yoked. Okay. But we also said this, listen, we know that's a bummer to you, and so here's what we're willing to do. And most of his friends, because they were living in Chino Hills, but were coming to this church, and he was in the youth group. And most of his age-appropriate friends were in Fullerton. So here's what we did, and so then we named off some other friends. Named off, these guys? Yeah. You don't see them very often because they live in Fullerton. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the extra effort to make sure that we go and get them and bring them to the house, take you down there, and do that extra effort. So we're not taking friends away from you. We're just, changing who you're going to be hanging around with. Now, he still wasn't super thrilled about that, but the fact that we were kind of replacing something with something, and you're going to drive all the way down. We promise. Absolutely, we're going to do that. We're asking you to do the tough thing. And we got through that pretty well, considering what we were asking him to do. So there was an example of where we stepped in, and again, this wasn't even in an area that was traumatic, but it could have been, and we wanted to hit it off early. And so that's just one way that we engaged that with him and talked to him about that. And he went with us. Again, we were pretty easy on a lot of stuff, and then on these few things, we get pretty intense about it. Because if we didn't, there'd be trouble in River City. Okay? And I'd rather have this upfront challenge than the challenge of not engaging and having all this stuff unravel. Kidnap number 2. What do you think that is? What they're doing? Listening.
Media.
What they're listening to. Okay, what they're putting in their ears. Because what they're putting in their ears is repetitive. Okay? It's just, they start listening and listening, and it's all day long, 24/7. I mean, there's just a lot going on. In Proverbs 2, it says this, discretion will protect you, and understanding will guard you. Wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men, from men whose words are perverse, who leave the straight path to walk in dark ways, who delight in doing wrong, rejoice in the perverseness of evil, whose paths are crooked, and who are devious in their ways. And there's a lot of music out there that's not okay. And we've seen stories where people will kill other people, kill themselves, because when you find out they've been listening to all this stuff that's just not healthy, and it's just repetitive. So I want to control that. I want to know what they're listening to. I want to know what's going in your ears. I want to be aware of that, because I need to protect you, because you think it's cool and the beat and the sound and all that kind of stuff. And I don't care about the beat and the sound. I care about the lyrics, what's being taught. talk to you. Nothing is more singular about this generation than its addiction to music. Alan Bloom from the Closing of the American Mind. I mean, we live with music. I mean, we do too. I do. But hopefully we're making a lot wiser selection than what we're listening to. But there's a lot of junk that you can choose, and that's hip and happening, and again, you can see how who you hang with will influence this. This is why it's number 2, not number 1. If you're hanging around a good group of friends, they're not going to be exposing you to stuff that's probably not inappropriate. So that's why who you hang with is number 1. Because all the stuff comes from that. Now, a good resource, you probably know about this, some of you don't, and it's Plugged In. Anybody here Plugged In? Focus on the Family? It's a place where you can have reviews on music, on videos, on movies, on TV shows, on games. It's a great place to go. It's a great place to take your team and say, let me show you why it concerns me. Did you know this? For a while there, we said, listen, if you can show me and we had a couple other sites that I'll show you later. If you show me where they say it's okay, then it's okay with me. So you don't argue with me. Look what other independent people are saying. And they get pretty graphic about what is said. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm reading this with my mom. Okay, and forget about it. They lay it out there. This is what you're listening to. This is the words. And so this is a great resource to be able to, and it's also a great resource because you'll hear bands that you go, what? That's a band? Really? That was like something you eat or something. It's just weird, right? And you don't know what it is, and you're out of touch. I'm really out of touch because I don't have any teens anymore. And so I'm hearing something and I'm like, wow, man, that's some crazy stuff. I don't recognize that at all. But you can quickly become well-versed in that band by coming here. So your kid's into some group or whatever, you come here, you type it in, and you find out what's going on in a real quick hurry. Okay. Another tactic is to say, listen, if you're going to listen to it, let's listen to it together, and then let's see if it's okay. If you think it's okay, and oftentimes it's a no-brainer. Okay, never mind. Not going to listen to that. Or they'll also say, no, we don't need to listen to that. That's fine, because they don't want to sit there and listen to it with you. They're embarrassed. Okay, Kidnapper 3. What do you think it is? What they put in their eyes. Huge. And it's gotten worse. Since I've been doing this for almost 20 years, we've been teaching this class, it's a whole different ballgame now with what they put in their eyes. Proverbs 17 says, a discerning man keeps wisdom in view, but a fool's eyes wander to the ends of the earth. Proverbs 23, my son, give me your heart and let your eyes keep to my ways. And there's a whole lot of things that make our eyes wander off the straight path. Now, let me tell you the story about my other son, my youngest, Austin. He was into, and we were struggling, he was into gaming and game box and stuff like that, so we're keeping an eye on that. And for us, what we noticed, it wasn't so much what he was playing, because we had a pretty good handle on that. But it was the fact that he was playing so much and becoming obsessed with it, and like nothing else mattered. And everything started going by the wayside. And we were going like, it's not even about finding the right kind of games to play. He just can't not lose himself in it. And so we talked to him about saying, you know what, we're gonna have to stop that. We're not gonna let you watch that anymore. We're gonna come up with some other stuff. So we worked with him to come up with other things that were entertaining and interesting. So we don't just take away, but we try to work with him to give back in a way that makes us feel better and makes him feel better, that at least we're trying to work with him as opposed to just taking things away. But that was another experience where we said, this is just, his motivation was going away. A lot of things were happening we weren't happy about, and it was because of the game. Okay. Now, as I talk about these 3 kidnappers, there's one of the things that make you crazy as a parent is to try to control something you can't. Good luck with that. Okay, and so what you can control is what happens at your house. But what happens at somebody else's house, that's a little harder to control. So if you control who their friends are, then you're much more comfortable with when they go to that friend's house because you feel okay about that and you know their parents. Okay? And so that helps ease that a little bit. Now, my wife and I, the way to know who their friends are is you start to become friends with their friends, right? So you start to build that relationship with those folks. And we made some great friends through that. Our kids caused us to have some great friends that we still have. All our kids are gone, but we're still friends. You know, we're still hanging out. So that's an important thing to get to know who they are. I'm going to talk more specifically about how to do some of this stuff again next week. Let me read something to you from a very secular organization, the Sexuality Information Education Council of the United States. It has long been recognized that media help shape the attitudes of the public, particularly young people, on a myriad of topics. The media play a major role in educating Americans about sexuality, gender roles, and sexual behavior. Now, this is an old, I got this a long time ago, but it's even more true now, right? Because there's all kinds of questions now about gender, and I mean, oh my gosh, everything's up for grabs. And the media has really played well into that to create a lot of confusion. And let me just show just a couple examples of that. I mean, Family Guy, there's some good family values being shared with everybody. And this here, Family Guy, this little annotation here comes from Plugged In, from folks on the family. I mean, they'll say, okay, here's Family Guy, and they'll start telling you about what's going on with that show and why that's maybe not appropriate. South Park, pretty hysterical, pretty funny, but not appropriate. And so again, Plugged In is a place where you can look at what they're watching, TV shows, cartoons, movies that they're going to go see. You can say, well, let's take a look and see what's going on in the movie. And it's pretty surprising how detailed and graphic they get about what you're about to experience. I often wonder, whose job is that to go do that and write all that stuff down? I mean, that's a crazy job, right? All right, one more thing that goes in their eyes, and what is that? Porn. 24/7 availability. Okay, this is all the places where they can have access, and I'm telling you that is huge, huge, and that's where we have to really guard them. What they're putting in their eyes, and again, who they hang with, that's where they're going to get some of this stuff. Who their friends are. That's why it's so important that number one, who their friends are. You need to know who their friends are, and you do it in a way where you make your home a place where their friends want to come. We did that. Our kids, friends loved coming to our house. We had a pool table, we had a pool, it was a place that everybody wanted to come. We had food, and it was strategic. We weren't just friendly, okay? It was very strategic. We wanted to know, and we saw a lot going on, where most parents don't know. Their kids are always gone somewhere else. I grew up in a home where I never brought my friends over. Oh my gosh, I would never do that. Are you kidding? And so my parents had no clue what I was up to. But you need to know. And so you need to have an environment where you can find out. Boys are watching this at young age. It's amazing. Now, a lot of us have talked about, put the computers in a public place and all that kind of stuff, and that's good. That's a very good thing to do. But you know what else is happening? Girls are getting involved, which is a very interesting thing, because girls typically aren't visual, right? Men are visual. But there's something going on in the minds of women, young women, because of this, that's changing, and in addition to the culture that's going on, there's been some radical changing with women. And I don't know if you noticed, there's a real change in terms of what women are about and how they're supposed to be. And these young girls are growing up and they don't have a clue, what's a woman, and they say, oh, okay. And so suddenly, and that plays nicely into men, doesn't it? Because men, we're sexually active, we want to have women that are interested, and guess what? We're growing them to be sexually interested in their eyes. And it's a little bit more surprising, but it's happening. Girls are curious, and now they have availability. This was an article that came out a long time ago. It says a teen twist on sex. A new survey says that many U.S. teenagers have engaged in oral sex, and it's not just boys on the receiving end. All right, bring that to modern day. Now what they're saying is that oral sex isn't sex. Intercourse is sex, but that's just I don't know what that is, but it's not sex. We're not having sex. Really. So there's a lot of things going on with our kids and in our world, and their access and what goes into their eyes is critical. And this is why I call them the 3 kidnappers of our teens. It changes their life. It changes their brain. It changes your family. Here's some fantastic resources, and these are on our website. But again, folks on the family.org and plugged in, great resources to find out what's going on, what your kids are into, what that's about, get the details on that. Be aware. Here's some websites that you can go to. One is, the top 3 are places where, this is the strategy with the top 3, and these are on our website too, so you can get the links and all that stuff there. But the top 3, one is Enough is Enough, another one's K9, Web Protection, and then Phone Sheriff. And Phone Sheriff kind of takes it a step further so you know what's going on in their cell phones, right? Because they don't need to be home in front of that public computer anymore. It's in their pocket. And so these are some resources that you need to know about, you need to access so you can guard your children. But the 4th one there is called SpecterSoft. It's a different approach. The first 3 are all about keeping you going from somewhere. When kids are pretty savvy technology-wise, and they figure how to get around it. The other thing that happens with the 3, it keeps you from going places that you want to go to that's legitimate, because they're not perfect. And so it's kind of maddening. The 4th one is very different, used by a lot of companies. We used it when our kids were growing up, and it lets you go anywhere you want, but it records everywhere you go, and it records it visually. So you can, they're on your computer. Who's ever been on your computer? You can go and find out exactly where they went. It also will, if they type in text, it'll text you the text. It'll type, the web places they've gone. So you don't have to be there to look at it, but you can come through and just review what has gone on that computer visually. It's like saying, listen, I'm going to trust you, but I'm going to put this little videotape player right over your shoulder, so just have a good time. And you know it's there.
Did you tell your kids that was?
That's a good question. And if a lot of parents go stealth when they don't need to, because there's no reason for it. Your kids are good kids. Don't treat them like they're a gangster. So you say, listen, you know what? This is to protect all of us, you too, and we just want you to be aware. And this software lets you do it 2 ways. 1, where everybody knows it's running, and 2, where you don't know it's running. And so with your kids, I recommend that you implement this. It's for the family, it's not for them. And this is just to keep us all safe. And it's running all the time, so we can see where you've gone. And we want you to know that.
Does that work on handheld devices or just your family computers? Because kids have handheld devices.
I'm not certain about that. I think the Phone Sheriff will do some of that. I don't know to what extent it does that. Okay. But there's technology out there, and I just did a quick search just to see what was out there. SpecterSoft is still out there. Some new stuff was cropped up because we got new technology. And so it doesn't take long to figure out some great resources. And this is why you talk to each other and say, oh man, I found something great that really works well. But you need to do that because they're not under your supervision hardly at all anymore, and they have access to all these things that you got to guard them from. Now, when you use it in stealth mode is when you feel like your kids are starting to go south, and you need to get evidence that says, look, because they're just blowing smoke, and they say, no, in denial, and you go, no, this is not right, something's wrong, and you need to find out. And let me just hit it now. What's their time? Snooping. Should parents snoop?
Yeah, I do.
Let me say this. I think parents should be aware. Okay? And I think that, and kids leave all kinds of clues. Bless their little hearts that they're just not very good at hiding stuff. And a lot of times they want you to find it. So you're just keeping an eye. You're not snooping, you're not on a hunt. Okay? But you're making your bed, you see something, you just kind of keep an eye open. Okay? That's what I recommend you do. Now, if there is warrant for snooping, then I definitely advocate snooping. Okay? Imagine this: you're driving along the freeway, and you're speeding, and none of you've done that, but just imagine that, and you get pulled over, and the officer comes up to the window and says, "Ma'am, would you please step out of the car? And would you be a little bit alarmed?" He's thinking, okay, just give me my ticket, Sparky, and get on our way, right? And he said, no, get out of your car. Would you please put your hand on the hood? And he's frisking me, going like, what is going on here? You know, this is inappropriate. And you'd say, hey, I want to get your name, I want to get your badge, because this is way overkill. What are you doing? I'm just giving you my ticket. I get it. I should have said, I'll take it. But if he comes up to your window and he's smelling alcohol and you're doing some weird stuff, moving things around and stuff, I mean, now you're getting suspicion. He goes, okay, come on, out of the car. We got something going on here, right? I mean, you've given him reason to start investigating. And a lot of parents, out of their fear, paranoia, start doing that stuff before there's evidence, before there's reason. And so you just make your kid crazy. And they start to feel like they're a criminal when they're not. It's just you are being anxious. So you just need to keep your eyes open, and then you implement these things with kids that the things are going fine. Hey, we're going to do this, and we're all going to know, and so that's how we do it here. Can I use a computer? Yes, but as long as you understand that there's going to be this way of doing it, you're happy to use a computer. Well, I don't want to. Well, okay, that's fine. So snoop, yes, but when you snoop, you can't get caught. You better snoop well. Because you're threatening the relationship, right? Because you're going to say, wow, you don't trust me. And if they catch you snooping, it's going to jeopardize that relationship big time. And if they're in trouble, I'll gamble that. Because I'd rather you not like me to protect you from doing something crazy or stupid or illegal. You got to be really, really careful.
If you're snooping and you find something, they're going to know you were snooping anyway.
And, well, if you find something, then the question is, okay, what did you find and how serious is that? And it's just, do we just keep an eye on this? Or then we start to parent in a way that starts to engage that without dealing with the situation because you don't want to reveal? Or it's like, well, yeah, all the lights come on, we address it, we challenge it, and we got a problem. Yeah.
I kind of do an open snoop where because of technology and maybe it's wrong, but I just say, okay, yeah, you can do this, but I actually get your password and I get your username, and you are subject to random searches at any time, so operate in a way that you would want me, your pastor, your friends' parents, because they're looking too, just so you know, everyone's looking, and I spot check, and they know that.
And I don't call that snooping.
Yeah, that's good.
Snooping's when you haven't told them you're going to be doing that.
No, they know, they just tell everybody I'm the stalker mom.
It's okay. Remember, I'm willing to die on those hills. You know, there was a time when Jordan, he says, I want to bleach my hair. And at the time, it was a time where people who bleach their hair were of a bad organization group, right? So we're going, I don't want to, no bleaching your hair. Right? So then he goes to youth camp at our church. Guess what he comes back with?
Bleached hair.
Really? But you know what? Did I have a problem with that? Why? Because who he was hanging out with. Bleach hair with that group, I'm good. Bleach hair with no group or potential of going with that group, I'm not good. And it's not the bleached hair, it's what that will do to you and who you're hanging out with. That's what matters more. It isn't my oldest son, I had a good friend of mine who's a pastor up in Seattle, and his wife and his kids came down. Our son was like 13, our oldest. Their son was 16, pastor of church down here visiting his 16-year-old sporting an earring. And we've been talking, well, actually, it had come up, but not real seriously. So here we are talking about this. And here comes my pastor with his son, who has an earring. Perfect. Guess what he asked me after they left? Hey, Dad, can I get in there? Here we are, you know. So again, what you do isn't as important to me as why you're doing it and who's influenced you to do it. That matters more. Yes.
Coming from a child's perspective of having somebody snooping, not doing what you were doing, where they're actually telling you, we're going to do this. But my brothers and I, we were really big kids. Now that I think about it, wow, we were really kids. I always thought we were bad. Our parents would snoop, and we would ransack our rooms, maybe even look through our underwear drawers, all kinds of things, trying to find something wrong if we were doing something. And my brother just 2 weeks ago was talking to me about how traumatized he still is by this. He feels totally violated. He said, when I was growing up, I didn't have a home. I had a place where I could lay down, but I was always scared because I had no privacy. I had no life of my own, and I felt very violated. So I think that it can be very damaging.
Can be very damaging.
For no reason.
Yes. That's why I'm saying you better have a good reason. you better have, I mean, you better, it's just like the cop, when he comes here, you better have good reason to start doing all this weird stuff to you, because that's not appropriate, and you're gonna have a real big problem with it.
So use the bleach hair scenario. Just if your kid wanted to do it just because, but maybe it blends to something else, but they're a good kid, they just like it. Rather than get you're so overprotective. Why do you let me do these things? Even they're a good kid. That's when it starts to get tough.
Well, see, if I know they're a good kid and he wants to do the bleach, and I'm looking around to see, is there any imminent kind of problem with it, I would go with it. Because you can change it. If let's say he bleaches his hair, okay. And then he starts, his attitude starts to change and he's starting to hang around, then I step in and say, not because of the bleached hair, it's because where it's leading you. That matters more to me than your bleached hair. I'm not trying to control all your behavior. I want to control the big three. If I get those down, a lot of the stuff goes away. It's not that big a deal. Yes?
I just wanted to add to the comment about the random checking and notifying your child or children that you're going to do that. We did that, and interestingly what we found was when our son felt overwhelmed with what was taking place and inept to handle what was going on, whether it be with a girl or a best friend talking suicide, and these things are coming out in text messages, he would conveniently leave his phone in our room, on our bed, and we knew that he intentionally was asking for help without coming out and saying, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with the situation. And we would play it real cool. We obviously recognized that, okay, this isn't coincidence that this phone left here. We need to do a check and find out what's going on. And we were able to then come to him and talk about it.
Right.
And without him ever having that uncomfortable feeling of coming to us saying, I'm completely overwhelmed and I don't know how to respond to this situation, or,
Now, overlay parenting styles into this. An authoritarian parent is going to do what with Snoopy? Way overdo it, right? I mean, like a spout, like you were saying with your, Neglectful parents would be doing what? Missing the signs, missing the cries for help. And I worked with parents whose kids had suicide attempts and stuff, and the signs were there. There was letters. It's like they were just oblivious. I mean, you need to be aware. You need to see the signs. Policemen are trained to know when you just go give a ticket and when you start to have people get out of the car and you start searching the place. You need to know that. Yes?
We do the same thing where he knows that we check his phone, but we've found that it's a good talking point for guiding him in culture, because it's usually not him doing the stuff, but things we see a friend or a follower or whatever done, and then we go, hey, why do you think that might not be appropriate? Instead of saying you take that person off right away, you talk about it.
You let it build relationship, not divide you. Yes, excellent point.
If I can add something real
Yes.
quick, I work in a lot of digital marketing type stuff. It's all way over my head, but if anyone considers putting any of those kind of things on their phone, better make sure you are extraordinarily tech savvy, because any 10-year-old knows the time too much. I do work. So they'll find it.
So it's an ongoing battle, right? It's like the good guys and the bad guys, they're always figuring out a way around it. And so it's on a journey. That's why we need each other. We need people who know what they're talking about in certain areas that I don't know, and we need to find out. But our kids need us to know this stuff. Some other resources plugged in again for movies, videos, the whole deal. You can find out so much information. It's a wealth of information there. Then there's a place called screenit.com. It's more of a subscription thing, and it's more of a secular, but it's from parents who want to protect their kids. So if your kid's kind of pushing the don't put your religion on me card and stuff, this is a way to go to say, well, okay, let's just go to a neutral site and see what they say. You're not going to, over spiritualize or moralize. They're just going to say, here's why it's not such a good idea. So it's another great resource. And then there's counseling. I mean, when you start seeing things getting south, don't wait. Just an assessment session, just to find out. And I've had parents come in one time to me and they say, look, we just want to run something past you. What do you think? Da, 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 da. I gave them a couple of guidance, and boom, they were off. Didn't hear from them again. That was enough. Then I've been with people who waited and waited and waited, and then finally everything blows up, and then they're in a crisis, and now we got to pick up all the pieces. And it's long and it's expensive. All right, I'm going to talk about next week. I want you to imagine that you're an auto mechanic. And you're a good auto mechanic. In fact, your bay is full of cars. You specialize in American-made cars. And you and your wife, your spouse, are just doing some great business. And then something bizarre happens overnight. Every screw, nut, bolt in all those cars change to Metro. But they look the same. But they're not. And so the next morning you go out and you start going to work like you always do, and you use the tools like you've always used, and they're not working. And you're going, what is going on? And you try different tools. They don't work. And you're starting to strip the screws and the bolts, and the tools are getting ruined. And then you think like, oh my gosh. And then you start to wonder, I thought I was a good mechanic. Maybe I missed my calling. Maybe I'm not that good of a mechanic. I thought we were doing good. Something is so bad and so wrong. And the problem is, you ask yourself, am I a good parent? Now the question is that the solution to this is that you need a new set of tools. Now, I've worked with auto mechanics, and they say, do you know how much money I have out there in tooling? At least $150,000 in tooling. And imagine me saying, yeah, I know, but you need to, dump them and get a new set of tools. Out of your mind. I mean, the cost of that, oh my gosh. I say, if you want to still be in business as being an auto mechanic, you're going to have to change your tools. Okay? And it's what happens with us. You guys are using tools that work with, grammar school, grade school kids. And you may have been doing a great job, and here you are now, and things have changed, and you're using the same tools, and it's not working. And that's how you can exasperate your child, is by using a tool that's not appropriate. It makes them crazy, it makes them angry, it makes them furious. It makes you frustrated. And so next week we're going to look at some very specific tools that you need to start adapting to as you parent your adolescent. And then we'll talk about another level of set of tools for your late adolescent, because there's another shift that happens. When you start using these tools, it goes a whole lot better. You don't make this transition, change them back. That's for sure. Right? They're not going back. You either adapt to this thing, or you're going to have a really painful process for everybody involved. Let me end with this. And this is on our website too. You can get this if you want to see this. I see kites. I see children as kites. You spend a lifetime trying to get them off the ground. You run with them until you're both breathless. They crash. They hit the rooftop. You patch and you comfort, adjust and teach. You watch them lifted by the wind and assure them that they can fly. You find they're airborne, and they need more string, and you keep letting it out. But with each twist of the ball of twine, there's a sadness that goes with the joy. The kite becomes more distant, and you know it won't be long before the beautiful creature will snap the lifeline that binds you together and will soar as it was meant to soar, free and alone. Only then do you know that you did your job well. Okay? That's the journey we're on. And I'm telling you, Doug and I, we're on the other side of this thing. We've made contact with ground control, and it's a brighter day.